At 15, I was thrown out of my own house.
At 15, I was thrown out of my own house into a freezing storm because of a lie. No coat, no phone, no money. 3 hours later, the police called my father, and his entire world began to collapse. If you believe truth always finds its way back, subscribe now, because this story proves that even the darkest storms can lead to justice. That day began like any other. School, noise, the ordinary comfort of believing I belonged somewhere. I remember dropping my bag by the door, the smell of dinner still hanging in the air, thinking nothing of it. I was 15, tired, hungry, safe, or so I thought. Then my father called my name. His voice wasn't loud. That was what scared me. It was tight, controlled, already decided. On the table lay a story I had never lived, but someone else had written it for me. An accusation. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. I tried to explain. I tried to breathe. I tried to remind him of who I was. He didn't listen. Behind him, my sister stood quietly. Too quietly. Her eyes didn't meet mine. She didn't have to say a word. The lie had already settled comfortably in the room, like it belonged there. I begged, not dramatically, just enough to be heard. But belief is a door that only opens one way. And that night it slammed shut. Get out. 2 words. No questions. No code. No second chance. The door closed behind me with a sound I still hear in my sleep. Outside, the storm had already made up its mind. Rain cut into my skin. Wind stole my breath. The sky cracked open like it understood exactly what was happening. I stood there frozen, not from the cold, but from the shock. In one moment, I was a daughter. In the next, I was homeless. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to call. All I knew was that staying still meant disappearing. So I walked. Through rain, through fear, through the sudden understanding that childhood can end without warning. That night didn't just take my home. It broke something inside me and forced something else to wake up. Because when the world throws a child into a storm, survival becomes instinct, not choice. The rain didn't ease up. It got heavier, angrier, like it had something to prove. I started walking because standing still felt worse. Because every second outside that door made it more real. Because going back wasn't an option anymore. Not after the way my father's eyes had hardened. Not after the lie had been chosen over me. The road stretched ahead, dark and endless. Streetlights flickered like they were unsure whether I deserved to be seen. My shoes soaked through within minutes. Water crept into my socks, then my bones. My jacket, too thin, too small, clung uselessly to my skin. 7 miles. I didn't know it then. I only knew the ache in my legs and the burning in my chest. I only knew that each step felt heavier than the last. The cold wasn't sudden. It was patient. It started in my fingers, numbness pretending to be relief. Then my toes. Then my thoughts slowed, like my brain was wrapped in fog. I tried to focus on counting steps, on breathing, on anything that would keep me moving forward. Cars passed. Some slowed. None stopped. I wondered if they could see me, or if I already looked invisible. My hands began to shake, not from fear, but from something deeper, something more dangerous. My teeth chattered so hard my jaw ached. I hugged myself, pressing my arms tight against my body, trying to trap what little warmth I had left. I thought of my room, my bed, the life I had lost an hour ago. And somewhere far away, my father sat in a dry house, convincing himself he'd done the right thing. I imagine him now, standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, telling himself that discipline was necessary, that lies have consequences, that problems need to be removed before they grow. I was the problem. He didn't see the storm, didn't hear my footsteps fading into the rain, didn't feel the cold tightening its grip on his daughter's body. The road blurred. Lights doubled. My legs felt disconnected, like they belonged to someone else. I stumbled once. Then again. The third time, I didn't catch myself. I fell. The pavement was unforgiving. Cold seeped straight through my clothes and into my chest. I tried to push myself up, but my arms refused to cooperate. They shook violently, weak and disobedient. Panic hit. I told myself to move. I begged my body to listen. It didn't. I curled onto my side, rain pooling around me, my breath shallow and uneven. My vision narrowed. Sounds dulled. The storm felt distant now, like it was happening to someone else. "This is how it ends," a small voice whispered. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet. I thought of calling out, but to who? The road was empty. The night had swallowed everything. Loneliness is a strange thing. It doesn't scream. It presses down slowly, convincingly, until you start to believe you were always meant to be alone. I felt helpless in a way no 15-year-old ever should. Time stretched, or maybe it disappeared. I don't know how long I lay there, minutes, maybe more. My thoughts drifted untethered. Memories surfaced without warning. Childhood laughter, school hallways, the sound of my mother's voice from years earlier. Then something inside me sparked. Not strength, not hope, stubbornness. I refused to disappear on that road. I dug my fingers into the wet gravel and dragged myself upright inch by inch. My knees screamed. My lungs burned. But I stood, swaying, barely functional. Every step forward was the only choice left. I walked slower now, careful, focused on staying conscious, on keeping my eyes open, on the faint idea that somewhere ahead, anywhere ahead, was safer than where I was. The storm followed me the whole way, but I kept moving, because sometimes survival isn't brave. Sometimes it's just refusing to lie down. And while my father slept that night, believing he'd fix something, I was out there, fighting for my life in the dark, learning far too early what it means to endure. I don't remember the moment she first saw me. I remember warmth, not the kind that comes from weather or blankets, but the kind that tells your body it's finally allowed to stop fighting. A glow through closed eyelids. A low, steady voice somewhere nearby. Hands that didn't grab or shove but supported. "Easy," the voice said. "You're safe." Safe. The word felt foreign, like a language I'd forgotten how to understand. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me was white and still. No rain, no darkness, no roaring wind. Just quiet, clean, careful quiet. A hospital room. Machines hummed softly, like they were keeping watch. I tried to move. My body protested, heavy and sore, wrapped in blankets that actually held heat instead of stealing it. Panic flickered. Where am I? But then the woman leaned into view. She had kind eyes, the kind that don't rush you, the kind that wait. "My name is Gloria Hensley," she said gently. "I found you on the roadside." Found, not abandoned, not thrown away. Found. She told me later what I don't remember. How she'd been driving home after a late shift. How something, instinct she called it, made her slow down. How she saw a shape by the road that didn't belong there. How she pulled over without thinking twice. Gloria had worked with CPS for years. She'd learned to recognize danger even when it wore silence like armor. Hypothermia. Shock. Fear so deep it stops asking for help. She wrapped me in her coat, called for help, stayed with me the entire time, talking softly even when I couldn't respond. At the hospital, nurses moved quickly. Wet clothes gone, warm fluids, monitoring. The beeping of machines felt strange, but comforting, proof that someone cared whether I lived or not. I drifted in and out, catching fragments of conversation. 15 years old. Severe exposure. No guardian present. Each word should have scared me. Instead, they grounded me. Because for the first time that night, adults were doing what adults were supposed to do. Protect. When I was awake enough to speak, Gloria sat beside the bed. She didn't tower over me, didn't cross her arms, didn't look for holes in my story. She just said, "Tell me what happened." My voice shook. My throat burned. The words came out tangled and broken, but I told her everything. The accusation, the lie, the door slamming, the storm. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, I waited for the familiar shift, for doubt to creep in, for her face to harden, for disbelief to replace empathy. It didn't. Instead, she reached out and rested her hand over mine. "I believe you," she said. 3 words. No defense. No argument. No conditions. I broke. I cried the way you only cry when you've been holding everything in for too long. Silent at first, then shaking. Tears soaked into the pillow as weeks, years, of unspoken hurt finally escaped. Gloria didn't tell me to stop. Didn't tell me to be strong. She stayed. That night marked the first time I understood something important. Safety isn't just a place. It's a feeling and validation. The simple act of being believed can warm you faster than any blanket. Later, while I slept, Gloria made calls. She documented. She did what my family hadn't done. She chose truth over convenience. Somewhere else, my father would wake up to consequences he hadn't imagined. Systems would move. Questions would be asked. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that one stranger saw a child in danger and didn't look away. One woman listened, while my own family refused to. And because of her, the storm finally ended. The truth didn't arrive with drama. It arrived with paperwork, clipboards, timestamps, quiet questions asked by people trained to notice what others miss. While I rested in a hospital bed, warm, fed, finally sleeping without fear, something irreversible had already begun moving. An investigation. At first, it felt unreal, like something happening in another world. Adults came and went, speaking in careful tones just outside my room. Social workers, officers, hospital staff. No one accused me. No one raised their voice. They asked for details, not confessions. For the first time since that night, I wasn't defending myself. I was being protected. It started with the accusation my father had believed so easily, the one that had cost me my home. Investigators asked a simple question. Where did the evidence come from? My sister's version had been neat. Too neat. A story designed to sound convincing without being examined. But lies depend on speed, and the system moves slowly on purpose. They pulled phone records first. A burner phone surfaced, one that didn't belong to me. One purchased weeks earlier with cash withdrawn from an ATM across town. The footage showed a hooded figure, shorter than me, walking with a familiar posture. My sister. Then came the pills, the ones she claimed she'd found in my bag. Lab results confirmed they'd been handled recently, planted, not carried. Fingerprints didn't match mine. They matched hers. Each discovery tightened the circle. Money was next. It turned out I wasn't just an inconvenience. I was an obstacle. There was a savings account tied to my name. Money left by a relative, meant for my future. Money that required my presence, my consent, my existence. I was easier to erase than to control. When confronted, my sister denied everything. Come at first, confident. She'd played this role before. But facts don't bend to performance. They stack. They wait. And eventually, they collapse the lie under its own weight. By the time the case reached court, the story had changed. Not mine. Hers. I sat in the courtroom smaller than I remembered being, feet barely touching the floor. Gloria sat behind me, not as an official now, but as someone who chose to stay. My hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what was happening. Across the room, my father looked older, smaller. He didn't meet my eyes. The judge listened, patient, unmoved by emotion. Evidence played on a screen, ATM footage, phone logs, timelines that no longer left room for excuses. My sister's story unraveled in public. Each lie exposed gently, but completely. There was a moment when the judge turned to my father. Did you verify any of this before forcing your minor child out of the home? Silence. No, he said. The word echoed louder than any accusation. That was when I understood something powerful. Authority doesn't equal truth, and certainty doesn't equal correctness. The system he trusted without question was now asking him questions he couldn't answer. My sister was held accountable. Charges filed. The mask finally removed. The betrayal laid bare, undeniable. And me? I was no longer the problem to be solved. I was the truth that refused to disappear. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I told the story exactly as it happened. The night, the storm, the words get out, the road, the collapse. I spoke calmly, because I didn't need to convince anyone anymore. The truth was already standing. The ruling didn't feel triumphant. It felt quiet, heavy, final. Consequences were issued. Custody decisions made. Protections put in place. Justice doesn't clap for itself. It just moves forward. As we left the courtroom, my father finally looked at me. Really looked. His mouth opened, Maybe for an apology, maybe for an explanation, but nothing came out. Some moments are too late for words. And some power shifts don't look like victory. They look like silence, where certainty once lived. That was the day I learned something no one had ever taught me. The truth doesn't rush, but it never forgets. And when it finally speaks, it changes everything. I didn't go back to that house. Some doors, once closed, aren't meant to be reopened. Instead, I went somewhere unexpected, my grandmother's home. A place that smelled like old books and fresh tea. A place where doors didn't slam and voices didn't accuse. She didn't ask me to explain everything. She already knew enough. Stay, she said, as long as you need. For the first time in months, my body relaxed without permission. Life there was quieter, slower. Mornings came with routine instead of fear. I enrolled in a new school where no one knew my past, where my name didn't carry rumors or whispers. At first, I kept my head down. I didn't trust easily. Healing is cautious like that. But safety has a way of rebuilding what fear breaks. I started raising my hand in class again. I made friends. I laughed, surprised by the sound of it. Confidence didn't return all at once. It arrived in pieces. A pass test, a compliment, a night of uninterrupted sleep. Each small win mattered. The legal aftermath unfolded quietly in the background. My sister was sentenced. The narrative she'd built collapsed completely. My father's role, his failure to protect, was exposed publicly. Consequences didn't scream. They settled, and I was finally allowed to grow without carrying someone else's guilt. Years passed. I finished school, then more. I chose a career built on purpose, not power. Helping, not controlling. I built a life where my voice mattered, where love didn't have conditions. I fell in love slowly, carefully, with someone who listened before speaking, who never raised their voice in anger. Peace became my standard, not a luxury. Sometimes, people ask how I got through it. I tell them the truth. I didn't survive that night. I was redirected. That storm didn't end me. It pushed me onto a path I would have never chosen, but one that taught me strength without cruelty, independence without bitterness. I still remember the rain, the road. The words get out, but they don't owe me anymore. Because what began as rejection became release. What was meant to erase me, forced me to rise. And the lie that tried to destroy a 15-year-old girl ended up revealing something far more powerful. A woman who learned early on that home isn't where you're told you belong. It's where you are believed. Some storms don't destroy you. They reveal who you were meant to become. That night, I lost a house, but I found a home. I lost a father who didn't protect me, and gained a life that no one can take away. If this story moved you, like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more real stories where truth always finds its way back. Because sometimes being thrown into the storm is how you learn you can survive anything.